Today, we're talking about sales psychology. So if you want to close more deals, you need to know the mind tricks that actually make people buy. But here's the thing, most sales training gives you the scripts and the words to say without actually explaining why it works in the first place. So in this video, I want to show you 7 mind tricks that top sellers use to turn prospects into buyers. Now these tricks, they work for any product, any price, and any type of selling. By the way, my name is Aaron Martinez, and I've helped train over 4,000 sales professionals and remote closers at this point, and we use these exact same mind tricks in our business that does $30 million a year. Now, the first mind trick is what we call pain amplification. So most closers or salespeople, right, they make a really big mistake. They rush to present their specific solution before fully establishing the pain. And what I learned from one of my mentors is if there is no pain, there is no sale. I mean, you don't go to the doctor if there's nothing wrong, right, outside of a general checkup. Now, the best remote closers and salespeople, right, they don't just ask, what is your problem? They dig deeper with questions like, hey, John, what have you tried so far in the past, right? How did that work out for you? And why do you think it didn't work? So let's give a real world example. Let's say you're selling business coaching. Instead of asking things like, John, what are your goals, right? You can say things like, what challenges are you facing right now? How have those issues actually affected your business? What would happen if nothing changes in the next 6 months? This creates what Cole Gordon calls the gap, which is the distance between where they are right now and where they want to be, which ultimately motivates them to find a solution. Now, I really want you to listen to this next one because it separates average sellers from the top performers. So the second mind trick is called doubt creation. This is where we help customers realize that they probably can't fix the problem by themselves, right? Instead of saying like, oh, you need my help and you need to buy my product, you want them to come up with that assumption by themselves. So you can do that by asking questions, so John, what stopped you from solving this already? Or even, John, if you could have fixed this yourself, would you have done it by now? What's important here is these questions don't actually attack the person. They simply highlight the reality in their own words so that they can come up to their own conclusion that they actually need your help. Now, the third trick builds directly on this one, and it's probably one of the most powerful for getting people to take action quickly. So this third trick is called the cost of inaction. This is where you help them understand why leaving the problem unchanged is more costly in the long term than investing in your solution. So for example, let's say we're talking to a business owner again, and we're wanting to sell them marketing help. When they're on that call, we're assuming that, they're there for a reason, right? They have some sort of pain and they're trying to make their marketing better. So because it's not at the place they want to be, you would just say, hey, so if this continues for another year, how much revenue do you feel like you'll miss out on without having the right marketing system in place? Besides money, what's costing you in terms of time and energy and stress? This approach leverages what is called crossing the action threshold. So this is the point where the pain of staying the same exceeds the pain of making a change. Now, once you've shown them the cost of their problem, you need to shift their focus to the solution, and this is exactly how you do it, jumping into number 4. So the fourth mind trick is desire creation. This is where you help them see the compelling payoff that they'll get from actually fixing the problem they told us in step number 1. Instead of telling them all the benefits that they're going to get, you want to ask questions like, if we could solve this problem completely for you, what does that actually mean for your business long term? How would fixing this issue affect your personal life? What would you be able to do if this problem was completely gone? So something you could say is, hey, if you didn't have to spend 20 hours a week on the task in your marketing, then what would you focus on instead, right? How would doubling your leads change your business year over year? This works because people need both pain and gain messages, right? Pain motivates them to take action, but they need the gain to direct the energy somewhere more positive. The fifth mind trick is money qualification. So this is exactly where you figure out if the customer or the prospect has both the resources and the willingness to fix the problem. Now, here's the thing. This is not about handling objections. It's about qualifying customers early with 2 simple steps. First, we need to check if they have the resources. Now, this can be done by asking the questions through different scripts that we've talked about on this channel before. Figure out current situation, desired situation. If their current situation, they're already making, good money, right? You can go a little bit deeper into that and figure out, what are your expenses on that? Is that net or gross, right? Really figuring out the amount of money that they have. But the last thing that you want to do is say something like, so what is your budget to solve this problem? Because that is a very obvious question and they're not going to answer that truthfully a lot of times. Or they think that the budget is this really low thing and they want to spend $100 a month to make an additional $100,000, which obviously is just not the case. So when you ask those questions, is just figure out their current situation, dig deeper on that by asking more questions, and then logically think, okay, they're cool, they're in this situation, we can move on to the next step of the process. Now, second, and here's where a lot of people mess up, is you need to understand if they have the willingness to invest, right? If you were confident this would solve your problem, would you want to work directly with us to actually help you fix that problem? And during this conversation, if they hesitate at all, they're not 100% confident, do not immediately drop the price. You want to bring it back through everything they already talked to you, right? What are the pains? What is the cost of inaction, right? What is the desires that they're looking for? Now, on that point, very important piece here is that the willingness, right, to actually fix the problem is usually just going to be a smokescreen for cost concerns, right? How much is it going to be? At this point, they just might not see enough value yet. Now, this next trick is often overlooked, but it's crucial for closing deals where other people might be involved in the decision. So the sixth mind trick is the support check. So this is where you figure out if there are other people around them in support of fixing the problem. This could be a wife, husband, partner, business partner, right? Board of executives, whoever's going to actually implement this initiative, especially in like a higher level business. When selling to a business, you can ask questions like, hey, John, so besides you, who else would be, just curious, involved in making the decision, right? How does your team feel about making this change? And then based on the ways that they answer those questions, it shows you where you go next. So if they have no one else that's going to be on the decision, then obviously you can move forward. But if they say some sort of partner or team needs to be involved, then you definitely want to pitch and get that person on the conversation as well, so that this becomes a collaborative effort. And it's not just, they make the decision and then they go and figure out that they shouldn't have made the decision by themselves. And now we've reached the most powerful mind trick of all of them, and one that's going to be the biggest obstacle in any sale. So the seventh mind trick is trust building. This is how you get customers to trust you, your brand, and your methodology when they've been burned before. Instead of just saying, oh, we're different, right? Show them exactly why previous solutions failed and how yours specifically fixed those issues. So if we just keep this example very meta, let's say we're selling a sales training, right? I would say, hey, so John, you mentioned you've tried traditional training without lasting results. The reason that approach really doesn't work anymore is because it focuses on theory and words instead of psychology. You see, our approach is very different because we focus on actual 7 frameworks that are mind tricks that we call them, which addresses the actual beliefs that the person needs to have to actually buy a product. The way that you build trust is explaining and showing that you can fix a problem for somebody else. And then the pitch that you use is the simultaneous explanation why everything that they've tried in the past has failed and why your approach will be different. What this does is it builds trust in your methodology, which is the most important type of trust that you can establish. If you take these 7 mind tricks and implement them into your systems, it's going to make you an immensely better closer, salesperson, and at the end of the day, help you make more money and change more lives. If you want to see an entire script breakdown, you can go ahead and click the video on screen where I break down the entire process that we've used in our own businesses to close $30 million and helped over 4,000 other people just like you, either wanting to get into sales or better your sales abilities.